Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Sitting here Friday morning, I still got some takes around this USC football team heading into 2025. And I know that might sound crazy because we've talked about this football team by far more than any other team across the country over the last couple of months. Now, most of our conversations around USC have been what's going on the recruiting trail, where they've been absolutely rolling. We still got a 2025 football team to talk about. What I want to get into today is the questions that we still have about this USC football team heading into 2025. Look, we've given Lincoln Riley, Chad Bowden, this USC program a lot of flowers over the last couple of months. I think they did some really nice work in the offseason addressing some of the bigger concerns about this football team heading into 2025, most notably that defensive line. Like my take on the USC defensive line is it was probably the worst in the Big Ten in the 2024 year. Didn't have enough difference makers, certainly didn't have enough size and depth. Now you look at this unit heading into 2025, I would venture to say that it might be the strength of this USC defense heading into the 2025 year. There's a lot to like around this USC team going into 2025 that I don't think enough people realize. I think there are a lot of people across the country that just look at USC, look at Lincoln Riley as the head coach, and just assume that the defense is going to be below average. Now, look, I don't know if we necessarily fault those people, the casual college football fans who don't follow this program closely, because during the beginning of Lincoln Riley's tenure, it was a disaster. I don't think enough people realize that the job Dan Lynn did last year with just not even close to good enough personnel was amazing. Going into year two, it only gets better, but now they've addressed the personnel as well. I don't think the casual college football fan respects enough how good I think this defense can be. And I think the crazy part is when you start talking about the biggest question marks for this USC football team, I think many of the questions we have is on the offensive side of the football, specifically at the quarterback position. Now the conversation I want to get into Jaden first is it's not how good can he be. We all know he can be really good. There's a lot to like about what Jaden brings to the table. It's how good will he be in 2025 is probably the conversation where you saw some good things in 2024, but it wasn't good enough to go out and win 10 football games in the Big Ten this year. What does Jaden need to do? What questions does Jaden need to answer going into the 2025 year? That's where I want to start. I want to kind of work our way down this roster, talk about some other question marks we have going into fall camp. Before we get into it, as always, the USC fans, number one, I always start these episodes out by just thanking you guys. Look, there's a reason we talk a lot of USC football here. Number one, because they're landing a commitment seemingly every single day. But secondly, y'all listen. Y'all show a ton of support to the boys. It makes it really fun to talk this program. I can't thank you guys enough for rocking with the fellas the way y'all have had over the last couple of weeks and months. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, let it fly in the comment section. Look, if I have a question about the part of this USC football team that you disagree with, that's the beauty of doing this in May. Hearing from you guys in the comment section. Appreciate y'all. Without further ado, let's get into it. Now, I think the best phrasing of the question is, all right, will Jaden take the step? There are a lot of things you like about Jaden. Let's start let's start with, you might say, the things we like about Jaden at the quarterback position. Number one, the size and the arm. Like you don't really see that with a ton of quarterbacks across the country. He has the size that you're looking for, and he has the arm strength that you're looking for to make any throw on the football field, especially off-platform throws. Like one of the things with Jaden that you get that you didn't really have with Miller Moss is you can ask him to get outside the pocket and throw off platform, push the ball to the boundary, push the ball vertically down the field. Some of the things that Miller Moss just didn't do all that well. Look, I think Miller Moss probably gets a little bit over criticized in terms of what he did for USC in the 2024 year, but Jaden offers a little bit more in terms of what you can ask this kid to do. I think secondly, the creativity and the playmaking. Like I'm not going to comp it to Caleb Williams, but it reminds you a little bit more of Caleb Williams when, hey, it's not perfect around me. I'm going to get outside the pocket. I'm going to extend plays, and I'm going to go be a playmaker at the quarterback position. Well, kind of different from what you had with Miller Moss, where look, if it wasn't perfect for Miller Moss, it probably wasn't going all that well. You have a quarterback that can be creative, that can get outside the pocket. That's a big body that's hard to bring down for these defensive linemen and linebackers. You like that as well. His ability to throw to the boundary is probably my favorite thing that I like on the film. This kid effortlessly can throw opposite hash to the boundary. Those are throws that a lot of college football quarterbacks can't make. Jaden can make them. And so there's a lot to like about Jaden going into 2025. All right, what do we need to see improvement on? I think I want to start with this. Learning how to balance, I want to be a difference maker at the quarterback position, but I also want to limit the amount of times I'm putting the ball in harm's way. And look, when you are a difference maker at quarterback, like Caleb Williams would put the ball in harm's way a little bit, but he was really good at walking that line. Like, I'm going to make some big time throws that require me to put the ball in harm's way at times, but I have enough confidence and I have the ability to make those throws. Caleb Williams walked the line of a playmaker and not turning the football over about as good as you've seen a quarterback walk that line. You want to see Jaden walk that line a little bit better. It felt like sometimes he was trying to do a little too much and there'd be some dropping turnovers. The second thing, processing, especially over the middle of the field, but it always felt like Jaden would be a kind of a one-read quarterback late in 2024. Got one read. If it's not there, I'm dropping my eyes and I'm kind of trying to create. Look, sometimes that's what has to happen. But I think the step that you want to see from Jaden is, hey, my first read's taken away. Can I sit in the pocket, keep my eyes up, and go to my second and third and kind of click through? Can you speed up that process a little bit, that internal clock in the pocket? And I think that starts with just a better understanding of the offense. The quarterbacks that process the best understand the offense the best. And I think with Jaden's case, like, he was quarterback 2 all of spring practice, all of fall camp, the majority of the 2024 year, just wasn't getting the amount of reps. Obviously was a transfer portal addition too. It's not like he's been in the program for 3 years with this Lincoln Riley offense. The full offseason of being the guy in spring practice, in fall camp, Lincoln Riley pouring all his effort into developing a guy like Jaden. I mean, I think it's important to remind ourselves this is just natural. Like, when you have a quarterback 1, they're getting the attention from Lincoln Riley and the coaches. Was Miller Moss 12 months ago? Now it's Jaden. Can the processing get a little bit better, especially over the middle of the field? Can we just be quicker to find answers? Is probably the other thing you want to kind of see Jaden take a step. Look, if you're a USC fan, in my opinion, the biggest question is quarterback play. It's a good spot to be in if you're a USC fan, because you kind of have the blind trust that Lincoln Riley is going to figure it out with his quarterbacks, because there's a long sample size of Lincoln Riley making that happen. I think Jaden has the capability to be one of the best Big Ten quarterbacks in the country, or Big Ten quarterbacks in the conference. Will he be that is a big time storyline for USC, because I think it's fair to say he wasn't that in the 2024 year. It's a small sample size, but I wouldn't have considered him a top 3 quarterback in the conference. But I think he has the ability to be that kind of guy in 2025. Will he? Probably the biggest question mark we have for USC. The last question mark I have on offense is, are we deep enough on the offensive line? USC was really lucky last year to go through pretty much the whole season not really dealing with all that many injuries outside of Elijah Page getting banged up in the bowl game. USC stayed healthy. I look at this USC offensive line going into 2025 and say, look, this is, I think, a quality starting 5. And I think you have a 6th guy in Justin T, who's going to be a very quality swing tackle for USC. If you do have some injuries in the 2025 year, are you deep enough? Do you have 6, 7, 8 guys that you trust on the offensive line to kind of keep that ship rolling? I think it's a question, because I don't think we know it's there. And I thought you saw USC maybe kick. I'm kind of surprised that USC did not go to the portal to grab one more offensive lineman in the spring. And maybe that's a good thing. Like, maybe that's Lincoln Riley, Coach Hansen telling us, hey, we like what we have in our offensive line room. But it's certainly a question that we have. I mean, you look at what Chad Bowden did with Notre Dame and how deep that offensive line was. Notre Dame had multiple legitimate injuries on that offensive line of the 2024 year, and they just recycled them. And not recycle, that's probably not the best term. They rolled through, and they had enough depth to not really waver up front. Does USC have that in the Big Ten? I feel like If USC wants to win 10 games, as of right now, and this could change. As of right now, I feel like USC needs some injury luck, and I feel like we got to stay healthy up front on the offensive line. This is going to change. Chad Bowden has 6 offensive linemen committed in the 2026 cycle. I think he's going to add 1 or 2 more. Like that was the recipe for Chad Bowden at Notre Dame. Deep offensive line with a lot of competition. That's where he wants this program to go, but it's not going to be there immediately in 2025. So to me, USC, I think, needs to stay healthy up front. Look, I want to reiterate. I think the offensive line, the starting 5, I think is going to be a solid unit. Can we deal with 1 to 2 injuries and not really get into some spooky times up front is probably the question mark you have for USC. Defensive side of the football. Let's start with the things that fire us up. And we've talked about a lot of these things for a while now. I think number 1, year 2 with Dan Lynn. USC fought like heck to keep him away from Penn State. USC fans, y'all were on top of it on Twitter. I released my top 10 defensive coordinators, and I had Jim Knowles above Dan Lynn because of what he did at Ohio State last year. A lot of y'all in the comment section saying, hey, don't forget Penn State, who went out and hired Jim Knowles. That wasn't their first choice. Like their first choice sounded to be Dan Lynn at USC, and USC ponied up to keep him home. I shouldn't say keep him home. He's actually a Penn State alum. Keep him out in LA, which I think is huge. And I think this defense only gets better going into year 2 as more of these guys are comfortable with what USC wants to do on defense. The defensive line, legit, especially on the inside. Again, this was a problem for USC in 2024. Now it's arguably a strength, especially if you get some development from guys like Carlin Jones and Jide Abasiri and Devin Tompkins, who I think all are very, very capable players to be dudes. And there's 6, 7, 8 guys that you trust to play in the middle of that defensive line. We were probably at 4 last year. And off the top of my head, it was like Nate Clifton, Gavin Mayer, Kobe Pepe. You saw a little bit of Jide. Obviously, Bear Alexander quit. They didn't have any depth last year. Now they got the size and depth. Here's the biggest question, and this is more of like I think the edge rushers are going to be good. The question is, how good are they going to be? And this is a really important conversation because I think the ceiling for these pass rushers are pretty dang good out there on the edge. And again, Jakeem Stewart, I think, working out on the edge too as a true freshman, so we can kind of include him in this conversation. Cam Fountain going into year 2. Can he be one of the best pass rushers in the Big Ten? Absolutely. He kind of was last year as a true freshman towards the end of the year. Will he be? Big time question. Anthony Lucas, we've seen the flashes. Obviously, the injuries haven't helped. Like, can he be that guy? What about Braylon Shelby? We all know the freaky traits he has going into year 3. You guys ceiling guys in this edge rusher room. Can you reach that ceiling in 2025? That's kind of how you see USC take that big step on defense. I mean, last year, USC had to load the box. They had to bring blitzes because they didn't have a defensive line that could impact a football game. You want to take a lot of pressure off Danton Lynn as your defensive coordinator, go win up front with your front 4. And I think USC can. Last question mark. Look, question mark pre-spring was, are we deep enough at linebacker? Jaden Walker emerges. You bring in Tamir Robinson. All of a sudden, I'm feeling pretty damn good about the depth at linebacker. Are the cornerbacks good enough? How good is this unit is probably a question that I have, especially when you have the goals that USC has, which is, hey, we want to go beat Oregon late in the season. We all know Oregon's got some difference makers out on the outside. Do we have cornerbacks that are good enough to deal with these wide receivers? There's some underlying confidence, I think, that USC fans have with these cornerbacks, but it's not necessarily proven, right? You have Chasen Johnson, who I thought played very well as a freshman at UCF going into year 2. You got 2 young cats from Braylon Connolly and Marcellus Williams going into year 2. That's, to me, best case scenario for USC. The young cats are dudes. I think DJ Harvey's solid. Can he be an all-conference guy in the Big Ten? He was an all-conference guy in the Mountain West. Can he be an all-conference guy in the Big Ten? DeCarlos Nicholson, I think, gives you that floor. Like, I think we know DeCarlos Nicholson is not going to be – I shouldn't say that because I like the traits. I like the length. DeCarlos Nicholson was solid last year. Can he be more than solid in 2025? I love the safeties. Kamari Ramsey, Bishop Fitzgerald should be a very, very good duo. When you want to compete at the highest level of the sport, when you want to compete with a team like Oregon that has – And here's the thing with USC and the schedules, they don't play a ton of elite wide receivers. I mean, you got Michigan on the schedule, you got Illinois on the schedule, teams that we think are going to be good. They ain't got that many difference makers at wide receiver. That Oregon game is the one you're looking at. And again, USC wants to go out and win that football game. Do we have the guys on the outside to deal with DeCorian Moore and Evan Stewart and a guy like Malik Benson and the laundry list of guys they have? Those are the questions. And here's the fun part is I don't – last year we had a question mark about the defensive line, and we kind of knew there weren't any answers. Like the questions that we just asked, like there are potential answers to these questions, which is a little bit different from where USC was in the 2024 year. We'll close it out there. That'll do it. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.